Packers training camp is starting to heat up. The pads are on and things are starting to get interesting. Here is what you need to know about the latest from camp.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm Kesha.
Welcome in another episode of Sounds Gouda. Thank you everybody for coming back and taking a listen to us. My name is Rob Ralph. Next to me is my best friend, as always, Jordan Olson. Thank you to any new and returning listeners. We are excited to talk Packers ball with you each and every week, Wednesday and Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please make sure to give us a like, sub, and follow us on those platforms. We are trying to get to 600 subscribers. We are running a promo here. So every new 50 subscribers that we get on YouTube, we're going to be giving away some free Sounds Good as swag. Just know that you need to be a public subscriber to be able to get in for that raffle. Jordan, training camp is back. The pads are on and things are starting to get interesting. What are a few camp updates that you're keeping an eye on so far?
Yeah, the couple big ones, I guess I'll just start with one that's like not in Packers camp at all, but I mean, it's certainly getting a lot of run. Jair Alexander and his injury problems seem to continue. He's been reported to be missing time over there in Baltimore now. Not going to spend a lot of time dwelling on it, but, the Packers are often right, more often than not, in these situations where they decide to move on from players. And, I think they didn't want to commit to Alexander due to his health. And, that's showing up there already. So in camp, the Packers are starting to get healthy and get a few people back. You hit me first, but I'll give you the low-hanging fruit. Elton Jenkins is back at practice. Quay Walker's participating in walkthroughs and progressing. So, some things are happening. Have a couple injuries too. I know that you'll probably want to talk about it, but Nate Hobbs has been playing hard, but he's out there potentially hurting guys along the way. I know that he dinged up Marshawn Lloyd a little bit in Monday's practice after getting in trouble on Friday for playing a little rough with Dontavian Wicks. But I don't know. What are you thinking about, Rob? What do you make of that Nate Hobbs business? What do you make of Elton Jenkins being back at practice?
Yeah, excited to have Jenkins back. That whole situation feels a little, I don't know, misleading. That's a good word. Confusing, maybe all the above. But he had his press conference today with the media, and he was able to just give us some more insights of how he missed OTAs because of some family matters too, as well, and that he's really just concentrated now on the team. And he said he wasn't worried about anything financially. So I guess we're set. Elton Jenkins is center number one, for us and for the Packers, which is very, very exciting. And just like we had guessed in previous weeks or months, even from before, we thought that this would get resolved in training camp, and that's exactly what happened on the first day of pads. So that's awesome. Hobbs is exactly the corner that you want on your team, with a lot of fire and juice. But he might be overstepping his limits just a little bit, right? We don't want to get anybody hurt. So I would assume that Matt LaFleur has had some conversations with him to dial it down just a little bit. But that's exactly what you want when it comes to regular season. So I do love to see that. I don't love to see the injuries, but if you can still bring that fire and that intensity, when it comes to actual real playing time, I think that's awesome. And I think he's going to do well for us, I hope.
Yeah, we're just getting so close to getting Marshawn Lloyd back. I'd be so sad if something like this took him out for a substantial period of time again, right? But you're right. Like, we do want these corners to play aggressive. I think that's the guy they went out to sign, somebody who for years, and not to pick on Jair Alexander again, but Jair got soft right after his shoulder injury, was not willing to come up, make plays through, defenders or through offensive players, not really willing to step up in the box and tackle. And it sounds like Hobbs is willing to do all of that. He's just got to stay off the guys in green and gold. His aggressiveness has paid off, though. I think that he's made some plays in practice. I think he had an interception again today. really there's been a lot of praise for the secondary. I know that Keyshawn Nixon has talked about locking in at the outside and kind of how that's really allowed him to feel more comfortable in that role. Carrington Valentine has had 3 interceptions so far in camp that have been recorded. There's a lot of talk about Bo Melton actually looking pretty natural out there. Is this all going to work out for the Packers? I mean, do they have like 4 guys that are actually going to play ball for them in that secondary? And are we really blowing this whole cornerback thing out of proportion?
Well, I keep bringing it back to last year and the performance that they had without Jair Alexander. So you insert Nate Hobbs, who, like you said, is the more aggressive cornerback, willing to come up and shed some blocks and make some tackles. So yes, I think their first 4 are very, very good. I do think they have most of everybody, I would say, in this cornerback room, like me and you were talking to before the show, has got a lot of versatility. Maybe besides Valentine, I don't know if you want to see him in the slot. He's more of an outside corner. So only thing where, I get a little bit concerned is, kind of that cornerback back end depth. But I think it would be a malpractice on the Packers and everybody else involved if they didn't make sure that they didn't have those guys ready to go, week 1 and know exactly who they're going to play and what situations, when, where, why, and how. So, Jeff Hafley's a really good defensive coordinator. I'm really looking forward to year 2 of that and how the secondary will play with that. Um, you know, just switching over a little bit to Nazir Stackhouse, looking really good on the line. He's made more than a few plays too as well. We kind of wondered how that was going to look without TJ Slayton. When me and you were talking about this with Eli Berkovitz, you said that Stackhouse gave you shades of Gilbert Brown. Definitely has been so far in training camp, which is really good and what you like to see, to be that cog in the middle. So curious to see if there's going to be anything about Warren Brinson, because I don't think I've heard too much about him. And then, like we've been alluding to as well, but switching over to the wide receivers, Matthew Golden is continuing to get the hype. Not only does he have straight line speed and side to side speed, he's making contested catches, he's running good routes, and he's literally putting people in the dust. So everybody's hyping Matthew Golden up, and like we've talked about too, maybe this team, will feed the rock to Golden or to Reed or to someone else that wants it, and get that wide receiver in a rhythm to really help this offense excel this year.
I have so much to respond to there. We've jumped from corner to the defensive front to wide receiver. So I'll backtrack us a little bit there. There was something from the episode we recorded with Eli, that I wanted to talk about a little bit while we were still on the corners. And that is Bo Melton. And I think, people are making that into something that's kind of set in stone. And I kind of had some additional thoughts about that. I mean, one, I don't think that the change from number 16 necessarily means that his final outcome is only as a cornerback, right? What it means to me is that he now has the ability to play cornerback in an NFL game, because as a player who wore number 80 previously, I don't believe that was a legal number. So that's maybe more of a formality than anything, other than it's a throwback to a number that he wore earlier, I think, in high school or even college for a little while. Two, if they are going to go all in on this experiment, why not immerse him in that environment? You already have more than 2 years of tape and footage as to what Bo Melton is capable of in this offense, and let him go out there for 2 preseason games and just spend all this time in camp seeing what he can do as corner. Because if you still think that he's like your wide receiver 6 and that's his best chance of making this team, I feel like they know what they have on tape and they could get him acclimated back to the offense pretty easily. On the converse of that is that I think that this really does open up an opportunity for somebody else that we've talked about in the past, and that's McCole Hardman. I really kind of wanted to favor Bo Melton because he's been in the system. I think he's younger, somebody that's under team control for next year. But if Bo Melton makes it successfully as like a 5th or 6th corner, and then could be that like 7th wide receiver, still do that stuff for you on special teams, that really opens the door for McCole Hardman to make this team as wide receiver 6 while you're waiting for Christian Watson to return. So I don't know. We haven't talked about that live on air, but I don't know. What are your thoughts about that, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, it's all very interesting to me. I do find it kind of cool, and also that he is out there trying to do his best to make the team, as a cornerback. I think it would be pretty incredible if he does go in and actually makes this roster as a cornerback. But if he can do both of those things, um, he'll basically be like a Travis Hunter, right? Like Travis Hunter is going to get cornerback one reps, and he's going to get wide receiver 2 behind Brian Thomas Jr. Reps probably. Don't want to anoint him wide receiver 1, but I don't know if you'll see exactly something like that. But yeah, I'm in agreement too that that would make it an easier end for McCole Hardman to be able to make this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I respect so much about what Eli Berkovitz says. I follow him. I love his updates. A super smart guy, but and friend of the show. But I think that Bo Melton, that kind of shocked me, and I kind of did a double take that he thought he maybe only had like a 30% chance of making this roster. I really think that number is much higher. I'd probably, if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd put that up there, 75-80% chance. I just think they're giving him as many chances to make the roster as possible because they do see an awful lot in him as a leader and a teammate that they like. So enough about that. But you did talk about Stackhouse, and there have been some reports of some other guys that were hoping to make a little bit more noise this upcoming season. But I've seen recently, particularly in Monday's practice, that Lucas Van Ness and Bretton Cox were making some plays along the defensive front. So what do you make of that, Rob? Do you think that that's progress for those players? Should we trust that we're going to see more and more of that show up in camp, or kind of what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I don't want to anoint anything yet. Practice is exactly that. Practice, is a replication of what you could see and do within a game. So I think Lucas Van Ness needs to continue to do that in games to be able for me to see that. I think it is good that we're starting to see a little bit of life and a little bit of more, I guess, technicality to his game from what I've been reading, seeing, and hearing.
Mhm.
But it only matters when it shows up in games. So I'm really hoping that he can continue to build on this, right? So he's got DeMarcus Covington, who is known as the details man within the Bill Belichick
Mhm.
defensive system, which is all about details to the extreme. So you can definitely tell so far that Covington is working with them, and he's taking that to heart. So we've been seeing some of that show up. We just need to see that more consistently.
And I think those are two guys that certainly could benefit on unlocking a tremendous amount of athletic potential if they can get the technical component that Covington can bring. So speaking of announcing players, you talked about Matthew Golden. I'm I'm a little afraid to announce him, but there are a lot of people on the Matthew Golden hype train, and I'm here for it. But I am a little bit afraid of, recently we've had some players pretty well hyped in camp over the last few years. Romeo Dobbs a couple years ago, shoot, even Samori Toure a couple years ago, and now we're talking about a little bit different draft pedigree. But we've gassed up a lot of players, especially wide receiver. I think Matthew Golden's a little different because he seems to be putting plays on tape every day of camp. Uh, but man, I just really don't want to get out over my skis and get too excited about Matthew Golden being, you know, a big hit. If he is, I'm there for it, but I'm a little afraid, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Um, just like with the Lucas Van Ness conversation, you gotta see that, in regular gameplay. So, but he's showing flashes, a lot of consistent flashes. So he brings a really unique element into this offense. Seems like he can catch the ball really well, which just in general obviously will help us. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, I think they're going to find as many ways often to be able to get him incorporated into this offense. But I'm in agreement with you. We need to kind of not put the cart before the horse and kind of see this in some gameplay first, because there is a lot of mouths to feed too. So, but that does not demean the fact that I think it's exciting. And I think a lot of that too could just be him being the first wide receiver taken in round one since forever too as well. So there's a lot of hype on that. But he's making the plays, he's showing up and he's showing out and he's catching the ball. So, I mean, if this, like you said, turns into more touchdowns, more yards per catch, etc., more bombs, to the house, absolutely, I'm in for it.
Yeah, let's just all be careful not to put too much pressure on a rookie to be, the savior of this offense. If he is, that's great. We're all going to have a Matthew Golden jersey in our closet pretty soon. I will say, though, I am ready to announce Jordan Love in this breakout, because there's been a lot of people talking about that. And if I'm ready to announce somebody on a breakout, I think it is Jordan Love, with the amount of time that he's put in on this team. This is going to be the start of what, year 6 for him as a Green Bay Packer, his 3rd year as a starter. He's been in the system. He's battled through adversity, through injuries now. He seems to be a guy who's gotten, up for his dudes. He's married, so he's got that out of his way. I just feel like it's the stars are aligning for him to come in and just play the best football that he can play, and I'm ready for it. He's been throwing a lot of fadeaways though, and those are fun. And I think Tucker Kraft has been the beneficiary of those in practice. But I hope he's really not setting himself up for some bad footwork habits.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would love it if Jordan Love broke out this year. Yeah, the fadeaways, maybe not so good on the footwork for sure. And I know that's one thing he's keen on. Not to say that he'll be Tom Brady-esque, but Tom Brady had some really excellent footwork within the pocket. So yeah, if Jordan Love takes another step up or two, so will this offense if the wide receivers can catch the football.
We'll have to just keep an eye. We have to remember the Tom Clements of it all. How much impact did he really have on the footwork of these quarterbacks over the last few years? Who knows? Maybe now that he's got Sean Manny in there, maybe he'll be the new quarterback whisperer, and we'll just get to a new level. But I think mostly probably Sean Mannion, I'm sure, is a great coach. But if Jordan Love gets to a new level, I'm going to give the credit to him for putting in the work and getting there. So last thing that I really wanted to touch on, and Rob, you can take it from there. But in the first day of padded practice, we talked earlier that Jenkins is back regardless of his off-season family issues, his contract. He says he's back, he's ready to practice. But the starting unit today was Rasheed Walker, Banks, Jenkins, Sean Ryan, and Zach Tom. So I don't know that necessarily means anything for Jordan Morgan, but they seem to have their preferred starters all healthy, and that's who started across the front today. So what do you make of that? Is Jordan Morgan out, or is this just a rotation that's going to continue in camp and be a camp battle, like they say?
I mean, if I were to have been a betting man, to put out what the offensive line would look like in week 1, this would definitely be it, with Jordan Morgan being your first in, either right guard, left tackle, just depending on if there were any injuries that happened. But, there's still a lot of training camp. There's still a lot of preseason. There's still a lot of things left to be played out. So, they have an emphasis here on competition too. So if Jordan Morgan comes in and he competes and he's locking down, right guard, left tackle, whatever that might be, I think that those are the two ones that we're kind of keen in on here. I think that they could easily give him a shot to be in there, to be Walker, Banks, Jenkins, Morgan, and Tom, or Morgan, Banks, Jenkins, Ryan, and Tom. So
Yeah. And it looks like they're really set at making Belton a tackle. I think I've heard pretty much exclusively they've been working him, in that position. I could be wrong. If you have a report about him working it at guard, send it my way, because I'd love to read it. But I think they're pretty bullish on trying to make Belton into a swing tackle option for this year. And and probably prepare him for the departure of Rasheed Walker and taking that job next year. And if Sean Ryan's a free agent too, then it might just go, Belton, Banks, Jenkins, Morgan, and Tom, so.
And I'll give flowers where flowers are due. Jordan said that he's a tackle. I kept pointing that he was a guard, so that might end up just being the case. And if that is the case, I'd be totally happy if he can lock down that left tackle position too.
My dad and I were talking for a few minutes. Shout out Mark Olson earlier tonight, and ultimately we said we don't care where these guys are drafted and what position they start. If you give me, 2 contracts of Anthony Belton as our left tackle, starting 6 years, and you give me 7 years of Jordan Morgan starting at right guard and 2 contracts, I don't care if they're drafted in the 1st round, the 3rd round, the 5th round. 2 contracts and 6 years of starting football and protecting Jordan Love is worth a 1st round investment. So I don't know. I agree with that take from my father.
Good old Mark Olson, shout out.
I don't have much else from camp, but I did want to just give a shout out to our Milwaukee Brewers for anybody out there that's listening along that also happens to be a Brewers fan. I know that's probably not everybody in the audience, but a big comeback win tonight against division rival Chicago Cubs and maintain a 1-game lead. A couple big games coming up over the next couple of days. On the day that you listen to this episode, on Wednesday when it comes out, Freddie Peralta will be taking the bump, hopefully going for a sweep of the Cubbies. Really just be happy with a series win, because at that point in time, they will have given themselves at least a 2-game cushion in this division. So we also have the MLB trade deadline coming up on Thursday. The Brewers made a small move today for a hometown catcher from the Rays. Oh, who was that they acquired? Is it Danny Jennings? Did you see that move, Rob?
I did. I can't think of the kid's name,
but he's from Appleton. Yeah, Danny Jansen is what it is. Sorry, Danny Jansen, hometown Wisconsin guy. But you are now a Milwaukee Brewer. Just a good little depth move for them to make, maybe bring in a little bit of a slight upgrade over Eric Haas, or just have some more depth there to prevent from injury. Maybe brings you a little bit more offensively, but I don't mind the move. I'm just kind of waiting around to see if they're going to bring in a big bopper to insert into this offense, or if they're going to trust the progress on the guys that are on this roster and just hope that the likes of Caleb Durbin and Vaughn and some of them can keep up the pace. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Are you hoping they make a move, Rob?
I mean, it depends. If they get Ramirez from the Guardians, he would be amazing addition to this lineup, and I think he's under contract for quite a while. Suarez, I think he's going to command a lot more just because of how well he's doing this year. So you might have to give up another prospect or 2 to get him, just because he's on an absolute heater. You know what? Whether you get a backup catcher that, you get it from the Rays or whatever, Andrew Vaughn, you send for Aaron Savali, in Matt Arnold, Rob Ralph trusts. So there is no doubting Matt Arnold and his additions anymore. So whatever he ends up deciding to do, I know it'll be the best for the club.
Yeah, I see here too, as I'm looking at cleaning a few things up from this Brewers news, but it looks like Eric Haas has been DFA'd. So for some reason they were ready to move on from him as their backup catcher. He's been pretty solid, but I think Danny Jansen is a nice little upgrade for them there, and have a nice 1-2 punch with Contreras and Danny Jansen behind the plate. So, well, that's all we got for you, Packers fans. We got family night coming up at the end of this week. Rob and I got a great episode coming out for you on Saturday about some things the Packers must do to win the division, so make sure to check that out. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, comment, like, and let us know what you think. You can connect with us on X. Rob's at Sounds Gouda with 3 A's, and I'm at Olson Jord. But until next time, Packers Nation, have a Gouda morning, a Gouda afternoon, and a Gouda night. Go Pack.
Go Pack.
Been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey.